Ladies and gents, welcome back to another video. This is going to be a lot of fun. I have 6 packages here in front of me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, this is going to be a bit different than usual. We're going to be opening up all of these packages, checking out the devices inside, and doing just a real brief review about each one of them. So let's get these things opened up, see what we've got inside, and hopefully we've got some cool stuff to talk about. All right, that was probably the longest unboxing I have ever had to do. So that's gonna be sped up really fast. So here are the devices. We have 2 iPhone 5s. These came together in one of the packages. We've got an iPod Touch 4th gen. It's a 64 gig model. We have an iPhone, I believe this is a 3GS, and yes, it is in the black color. We have an iPhone 6S in space gray. We have another iPhone 5, but unfortunately this looks like one of the Chinese models that you can buy based on the sticker here, and kind of how the device feels does not feel quite the same or look the same as the genuine iPhone 5 here on the right. That's a little bit disappointing. So we'll see once we get this powered up exactly what's going on with that. And then last but not least, we have an iPad 1st gen with its original Apple Smart Case. And there it is. We will get that taken out and we'll see what the storage is on that as well. So this is a 16 gig Wi-Fi model iPad. All right, so a lot of these devices have been sitting for months. I literally have a ginormous pile of boxes that I have not opened yet with old rare devices just like these. So I've decided maybe we'll do some videos unboxing more than one at a time because I just do not have enough time to record every single one. Okay. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna see if each one of these powers on. I'm guessing most of them will not, or they're gonna power on and then die right away. Regardless, I think they're gonna need to be plugged in. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let these charge. I'll get them cleaned up so they're looking as good as they can be. And then we will see what we've got. And hopefully we got some cool stuff to make a video for you guys. All right, so I went ahead and got the iPhones and iPod Touch and our iPad cleaned up, and I think we've got some pretty cool stuff. So let's just go down the line. Some of these are gonna require a little extra work, like this iPad. This one, I believe, is running iOS 3, so I'm gonna have to plug it into iTunes before that's gonna work. But these other ones, I think we can talk about most of them, at least get a good start. So right here, we've got an iPhone 5. It's the black and slate color. It's in pretty rough physical condition. You can see the edges here have seen better days. And this thing looks like it was kept in an OtterBox case for its entire life, as that has basically been etched onto the glass of the display. But it has slide to set up, which is interesting. The display is yellowing around the edges. I don't know if that's going to show up for you guys, but it is certainly not looking as good as a mint condition iPhone 5, to say the least. Now, this one also came in the same package as this iPhone 5, which is running iOS 6. As you can tell, this is a silver model in much better condition than this one over here. So I'm gonna go ahead and get both of these set up and we'll see just what version we have on each one. All right, so obviously iOS 6 on the right, and on the left, this looks like iOS 9. Let's head into settings on both of these iPhones and see just exactly which version we have and the capacity of our iPhones. Both 16 gigs, and on the left, we've got iOS 9.3.2, on the right, 6.1.4. So obviously super cool to get an iPhone 5 on iOS 6, not as cool to get it on iOS 9. Not the last version, as this thing did support iOS 10, but iOS 9 is pretty close to the end of the road for the iPhone 5. That being said, iOS 9 is still pretty smooth on here. Definitely not as smooth as the iPhone 6S, but it's honestly not that far behind the 6 and the 5S. So pretty cool to get these devices. Not so interested in the iOS 9 one, but the iOS 6 iPhone 5 is always a real treat to use. There's just something about it. I like the white one. That's my personal favorite here for the iPhone 5. That was my very first iPhone, was a white iPhone 5, just like this, running iOS 6. So it holds a special place in my heart. Okay, Moving on to our other iPhone 5. Now, this was the one that I originally said seemed like it was one of the fake Chinese iOS 6 models, but I think it's actually different in some way. I think this is actually just a regular model iPhone 5 from China. Unfortunately, it does have an iCloud account attached, no password, but Find My is turned on. But what's interesting is you can see the Wi-Fi here is labeled as WLAN. So I know the models of iPhones that are sold in China have some different connectivity things, and I think this might indicate that. Something else I noticed, and we'll see if I can get this to show up for you guys, is the fact that this thing makes a noise when it gets low battery. So once it dropped below 20%, it made the sound that AirPods make when they die. So let's see if I can get it to do that again. We're going to charge it until it reaches, like, I guess 21%, and then we'll let it die. And then I want you guys to experience what that sounds like, because I've never heard an iPhone make that sound before. So that is pretty interesting. While we wait for that to charge a little bit, here is our iPhone 3GS. I do think this is going to be running iOS 3, and it is. We actually have some apps on here and a couple games. That's pretty cool to see. Let's check inside of settings, general, and about. And it's a 16 gig iPhone 3GS running 3.1.3. So I think actually that's the last version of iOS 3. And that is what this 3GS has. Let's make sure there's no accounts, and there are, but I believe I can just sign out of them. Pretty cool here to get a 3GS. This was Apple's first updated phone in the sense where they updated the internals. The 3G was essentially just an iPhone 2G with 3G connectivity in a new body, but the 3GS actually improved upon a lot of things. Better CPU, better graphics, more internal memory, more storage, and a better camera capable of video recording. Okay, our iPhone 5 is back. This is above, I think it's at 21%. So I want you guys to hear what it sounds like once this thing goes below 20%. Okay, hopefully you guys heard that noise. It sounds to me like the same sound that the AirPods make when they are about to die. So that's pretty cool. There's a few other things I want to test here. Let me go ahead and get the microphone set back up. So I know some iPhones in the world have a camera shutter sound no matter what the settings are. So let's see if that's the case here. So if we turn vibrate on, maybe. Okay, no shutter sound. And there's the shutter sound. Okay, so I don't know what country that is. Maybe it's Japan if I remember correctly, but where every single phone sold there has to have a camera shutter noise regardless of if the phone is on silent or not. So let's see if this phone makes any special sounds when we plug it in. And it does not. That's pretty basic. But what if we turn it off? I know there's some phones sold in Asia where when they're off, they must display the battery percentage or something like that. So maybe that's not the case here. Let's see what happens if I unplug and plug back in. Oh, look at that. So instead of turning on, the iPhone gives us the battery level on the powered off screen or whatever you want to call it. Sorry, it's a little dirty there. So it kind of resembles the low battery icon, but that's just the iPhone showing you the charge while it is turned off. So this iPhone does not turn back on when you plug it in versus every other iPhone I've ever used comes on immediately as soon as you connect it to power. So that's pretty cool. But I bet if we hold down the power button, there we go, and it turns on right away. Now we are getting the boot screen that would appear on a white iPhone. So I think what's happened is that the display and maybe even the outer shell has been replaced at some point. That's why it looks and feels a little different. It's kind of got like a rounded edge to it. And then we've got this little Chinese sticker down there, which is what some of those parts have when they are third party from China. So very cool to get one of these. Not the most interesting in terms of iOS version, but cool to see some of the quirks and features associated with that specific model. I think this is completely dead. I'm gonna have to let this charge. This is a 4th gen touch with a massively scratched display. Let's see if it gets any power, and it is there. So I think it's just a 64 gig on iOS 4. So really not hard to find iOS 4 iPod touches, but 64 gig is a little bit of a challenge. All right, here's where things get a little bit more interesting. We've got an iPhone 6s, and as you can tell, it's on the setup screen. Slide to unlock means we do have iOS 9, but the real question is, will this iPhone activate? We're gonna find out once we get connected to Wi-Fi. I've actually been super lucky with my iPhone 6s and 6s Plus models where all of them have activated. I think I've gone through like 5 or 6 of them and they have actually all activated. So it's not looking great for this one. We'll see what happens here. Maybe my luck is going to run out with these models, and it is not. Wow. I don't know what it is, guys. I've heard the rumors, and they're not even rumors, but I've heard that the 6S and the 6S Plus and even the iPhone SEs just don't like to activate on iOS 9. But I have never experienced that. All of the ones that I've ever unboxed, and I think I've done a couple on the channel, they all seem to activate just fine. So I don't know what it is. I don't think I'm doing anything special. Maybe I'm just getting incredibly lucky, but I'm not going to complain because this is a real treat to get an iPhone 6S running iOS 9. So we're going to fly through the setup here, and once we get to that home screen, we can take a look at the beautiful iOS 9 here on the iPhone 6S, and it's prompting us immediately to upgrade to iOS 15. Absolutely not. We are not going to do that. So this is actually a 64 gig model. That's pretty cool, and it's running 9.3.3, so definitely not the earliest version of iOS 9. In fact, it's essentially the latest version. It might even be the last version for the 6S specifically. But nonetheless, very, very cool to get an iPhone 6S running iOS 9. I'm going to go ahead and turn off Wi-Fi. We're going to turn off location services, all that good stuff, just so that this thing does not freak out and basically reset itself to where we cannot save it from the activation problems. So beautiful device here, mint condition iPhone 6S, running iOS 9. And to top it all off, it's a 64 gig model. So that is a nice bonus. Okay, so this iPod is still charging. I guess we'll be doing that one last, but we do have this iPad first gen here, and you guys might be able to recognize this is running iOS 3. So let me get a MacBook so I can connect this to iTunes and get it activated. Now we've got our MacBook. Let me go ahead and get this plugged in with one of the 30-pin cables that we got unboxing all of these devices. And I think pretty quickly this is going to activate. This does not take long, usually. So let's, oh, there we go. That was it. I didn't even see iTunes do anything, but our iPad is activated, so we can go ahead and unplug that and close the MacBook. All right, here is that iPad first gen. We got it set up, and to our delight, this thing is running iOS 3. Let's head into settings and see just which version we have. 3.2.2, so a pretty late version. Well, actually, no, I take that back. Well, it is late. It's really late for iOS 3, but for the iPad first gen, which started on 3.2, this is just an update or two away from that. So pretty early for the first gen iPad. Super cool product. I've unboxed a couple of these on the channel, and it seems like a trend. Whenever I find one on iOS 3, it has the original Apple case. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because, like I've mentioned a couple times already, the people who bought the first gen iPad and never updated it are probably people who buy a new iPad every single year. Therefore, they get the accessories to go with it. And when they're done, they just stick it together and put it on a shelf. So this iPad never saw an update past 2010, I think is when this thing came out, early 2010. So before the iOS 4 update, this thing is still running its original version of iOS. So that's pretty cool. I know I've got at least one other video with just a complete review on the first gen iPad on iOS 3. It's one of my favorite vintage Apple products. There's something so cool about a first gen iPad that's never been updated. And for some reason, they are really, really difficult to find. All right, I don't know if you guys saw that over here, but our last product lit up. It's the 4th gen iPod Touch. And I know what you're looking at. Well, why are the colors all weird? Well, I got a little bit of a story here. This reminded me. I was actually gonna do its own video here for this iPod Touch, but we'll just do it here. So the reason I bought this was, well, actually, there's a couple things to unpackage here. Obviously, it's a 4th gen iPod Touch. The colors have been inverted. This was an option inside of accessibility. As you can see, triple clicking the home button did make those colors go the other direction. But I knew this was iOS 4 because I screenshotted it, and then I literally went into my phone and inverted the colors so that I could see the home screen icons, because at first glance right here, it's not obvious that this is iOS 4. This is not what we're used to looking at for the iPod Touch. So I was able to take that picture, flip the colors, and then I saw right away, boom, oh, we've got the YouTube app, we got settings icon with the the pointed edges there. That must mean that this is iOS 4. And I think it is. This one's actually jailbroken, and I noticed that because we've got battery percentage up here. The only iPod Touch that came with native battery percentage support is the 7th gen. No other iPod Touches have that. So heading into settings, general, and about, you can see we've got a lot of music on this thing, 4,380 songs, a few applications, and just a few photos. Of course, this is a 64 gig iPod Touch, but we already knew that. What we didn't know was the iOS version 4.3.2, so that is pretty cool. Unfortunately, this iPod Touch has really seen some heavy usage. I mean, look at that display. This is even after I tried to clean it. There are scratches all over this thing, and the back, you can barely even make out the capacity there because of all the scratches there on that stainless steel. Nonetheless, a cool device to get a 64 gig iPod Touch that's on iOS 4, and to top it all off, this thing is jailbroken, so that's pretty cool as well. Okay, I think that's gonna do it for this video. We got a lot of cool stuff today. We'll run through it just real quickly one more time here, and we can see all the cool stuff we've got. We got ourselves the iPhone 6s running iOS 9. It's a 64 gig model, space gray. iPhone 3GS running iOS 3.1.3. It's a 16 gigabyte black model. Gorgeous, gorgeous phone. Love the way the 3GS feels in the hand. We've got the 4th gen iPod Touch that we just unboxed there. This one's super cool, iOS 4, 64 gig model. Rough physical condition, but still a cool device to have. And we have ourselves the interesting iPhone 5, iOS 10 with an unfortunate iCloud account, but it does have those cool quirks and features such as the battery charging sounds and the battery icon when it's turned off. So someone please comment down below, where is this iPhone from? Because I know it's not a North American or a European model. Then of course, we've got ourselves the beautiful iPhone 5 running iOS 6. Perhaps the best looking device here of the bunch, if you ask me. That's just my personal opinion. I think the iOS 6 iPhone 5 is one of the greatest products Apple has ever made. There's just something about it. Then perhaps the most boring phone of the lot, we've got the iPhone 5 running iOS 9. Certainly not as cool as the 6S running iOS 9, but kind of neat that they both have that same version, although they are a few years apart. Last but not least, we've got ourselves that 1st gen iPad that's never been updated. This one's running iOS 3.2.2, a 16 gigabyte iPad 1st gen from 2010. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for this video. Hope you enjoyed taking a look at all of these devices. I know we didn't really talk about all of them, but I've done a separate video on basically every single one of these at some point. So leave me a comment down below, which one of these was your favorite? And if you could pick one to have, what would it be? Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in another one of my videos.